my gosh, we're back.
We're back.
Bam, 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 bam.
What, dude, no.
Hmm.
Up the energy.
little
I'm
bit more.
sorry. I didn't want to blow out speakers.
Like
that.
That was a weird tone, though. I don't like it. You do it better. You do it better.
We need to
No.
work. We need to work on this.
Yeah. We'll be okay.
I had some Piedmontese this morning. I'll have you guys know.
What?
Would you?
Yeah,
I didn't know you could have it for breakfast.
Yeah, I had a fillet. I got a picture of it. I got a picture of
Yeah.
it. Filet and some eggs. It was amazing.
Filet mignon.
Trying to go steak and eggs. Trying to bring back the steak and eggs and Vince Gironda diet from the 1960s or 70s, whatever it was.
Huh.
Ron Penna claims he did it for 16 weeks, but you know how those guys are. He's your crazy. he's your crazy uncle who you're like, but then it's Ron Penna, so you're like, he probably did.
And Ron can curl 100 pounds or 110
He's super strong.
I don't understand.
What about these people that know how much they can curl?
That's
Mike Ryan is like that too. He's like, I can curl a 110-pound dumbbell.
I always go by the young guys and I just
That's
grab
what-
more
yeah.
weight than them and you cocksucker.
hey, but look at Mike
Hey,
Ryan.
cocksucker, yeah.
Mike Ryan is
He's freaking
crazy.
jacked.
On the note of fillets, though, Piedmontese filet mignon is like really, really good.
Filet mignon.
Mignon, sorry guys, filet mignon. It's really freaking like it's really, really good. Surprised, like
It's
I didn't
amazing.
expect it. It's yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I cooked it up last night and just kind of reheated her this morning, and it was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Put some eggs on top of it. All good.
Yesterday, so I finally got my pellet smoker all together at the new place. I started working on it Friday, and then it just things get out of control. But I made flat iron steaks for the family and for my father-in-law. And he took his first bite. We thought he like bit into the fork or something. Like we thought he chipped a tooth, because his reaction was just like, oh. I was like, whoa, what's wrong? He's just like, this is so good. I'm like, I've been trying to tell you. He's like, this is what you've been talking about this whole time? It's like, yes. And it was just funny getting his like, just seeing someone's reaction to a flat iron steak for the very first time. You know, like it's been a while for us, but it's incredible every time. But like seeing it happen, it's like, damn, these really are different.
All three of us cook the steaks in some different ways, but
Mhm.
it's all the same thing. We take a slab of meat from Piedmontese, we heat it up in some way, get it hot enough to where we like it, we get it to our liking, but we pretty much just put salt and pepper on it.
Yeah.
I just use salt. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, salt.
Salt.
Yeah, sometimes butter. I don't know about you guys, man, if you use butter here and there. Sometimes I'll throw a little butter on there, but that's it, man.
Mhm.
We're not dumping barbecue sauce on it. We're not
No,
dumping
no,
teriyaki
no.
sauce. I think it would kill it.
Yeah. And that was another thing that, it always, not confuses him, but he's just like, wow, really? Like it's just salt.
Where you have
A lot of
ketchup?
salt.
You have ketchup? Like, no, man, come on.
Let me get that A1. Like, oh, get away from me from that. Don't ruin my flat iron steak with any kind of sauces. That's, And then also about the flat iron steaks, it's like 90 grams of protein and I think only 8 grams of fat. So
Yeah.
if you're tracking, if you're, you think you have to have chicken breast all the time, like, no, completely
The
wrong.
bottom line is, if you don't want to get jacked, don't participate in what Piedmontese.
Yeah.
If you're, if you just are like, hey, I don't want to have any more muscle, then Piedmontese wouldn't be good for you.
Yeah, just stay lame. It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For more information on Piedmontese, please head over to Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com at checkout. Did it again. Enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you'll get free 2-day shipping. 2 days, guys. I like it.
2 days. Let's
I
get it.
love me some steak.
Yeah, real quick. Someone just, John Murdoch asked if Mind Bullet has ever made you guys irritable. I would say the complete
The
opposite.
exact opposite.
Mhm. Yeah, so I don't know what happened. Maybe he got a bad batch of something.
I do think that sometimes you can come down from stuff. So just like coffee, sometimes you can
Oh,
come
yeah, yeah.
down the other side of stuff. But I haven't really noticed that. But I mean, I guess the opposite of when it does make you feel good, and then you all of a sudden don't have that same feeling anymore, and maybe that's some of that irritability that you might be feeling.
Maybe he took it when he was tired. There was a day
Tired
once,
and wired does not feel good at all.
There was a day when I took some Mind Bullet and I was like, I had 3 or 4 hours of sleep and I was just not liking it. It wasn't a good
Yeah,
experience.
you're in an altered state and you're tired. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the worst. It makes you feel sick when you're you're fatigued, like you didn't get enough sleep, enough rest, and then you have like a coffee or something like that, or any sort of stimulant. You feel like crap.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that guy, maybe he took a pretty large dose or something like that. So maybe he can try, trying a little bit less.
Yeah, or maybe he's just asking if it is a possibility because he didn't say that it happened to him. So maybe
I'd
he's
also
just wondering.
say it's quite possible that may not be for him. That happens sometimes. I have some friends that take it and they don't notice anything from it, which I don't know how that happens, but I'm not going to claim that it's not true. I'm not going to try to call people out and say, "Hey, you're lying to me." Some people get really charged up from caffeine, and some people don't feel it hardly at all.
Yeah, but I do know some people who are like they'll take something. I don't feel it at all. I don't feel nothing. I don't just because. I don't know. There's something to not having any type of effect.
You're like, I'm going to knock you out right there. We'll see how you feel that.
That's the worst.
I'm going to catch you with an overhand right now.
Haymaker.
Anyway, we're talking about social media. Social media distancing is what we need, I think. We need to distance ourselves from that shit every once in a while. But we're going to lay out some pros, which I don't know if there are any. But we're going to lay out some of the pros. Now, I think there's a lot of pros to social media, and I want to first say that I'm grateful in the time that I grew up in and the time that I created my product because, I don't know, like trying to take out an ad in a magazine and getting people to mail me checks and mail me money. I don't know if I would have had, nearly the same success. Being able to be on social media. I want to first off say that let's do this on this podcast. Let's just call YouTube something slightly different, and we can get to YouTube as well. But I don't think that YouTube should be lumped in the same way because it's not as highly interactive. People go on there and they comment, and there are wars on YouTube just like anywhere else. But I think it's not the same because you end up on a channel, you watch something from a particular person, and then usually you're off. You're not like scrolling from channel to channel to channel, from person to person to person. So for this podcast, we'll leave YouTube off the plate just a little bit. But I will mention that is how I built everything, was originally through YouTube. That's how I got a following in the first place. Some people followed me over to, I had a MySpace account, and from MySpace to Facebook. And my Facebook page used to do really well in terms of like interaction and stuff like that. And I did talk a lot about the products and those kinds of things. But I'll just start out by saying some of the general pros to everything is I would say that social media has made. Well, also I'll try to stick to some stuff in the United States, and then we can talk worldwide as well. But like, at least in terms of the United States, I think the amount of millionaires in the United States has probably like doubled since social media has like really hit hard. And I would say that's kind of around the time that, maybe a little bit before even, but around the time Instagram came into play. And so therefore, I think it's been a huge injection into our economy. And I think it's helped a lot of people. It's helped a lot of people be able to have some of their business on there. There's a lot of different ways to do Instagram. There's a lot of different ways of doing Facebook. There's Facebook advertising. There's Instagram advertising. I'm part of all that. So I also want to say that I support social media, like literally, like dump a lot of money into these things. So I don't want to say like how negative it is and then be, and then also say like, hey, I dump a lot of money into these companies, because that doesn't make any sense. But what I do want to talk about is I just want to maybe try to make people more aware today of some of the dangers of social media. On a positive end, I think you can get a reputation for yourself. I think you can build a business for yourself. You can become like an authoritative figure. Whether it's like really true or not that you are is another topic, right? And so there's some things like that. And then my favorite part of social media is the social aspect of, You know, they used to say there's like 7 degrees of separation. Well, now I just think there's one. You know, because you can reach out to Gary Vee. You could reach out to The Rock. Every once in a while, The Rock, you know, he answers back, and I mean, it's crazy, right? He's got like 200 million followers or whatever it is. So I think those are some of the pros to social media. We have gotten we've gotten some really outstanding guests on this podcast through social media. Gary Vee being one of them. We were able to reach out to him and people like Jordan Syatt, and the list goes on and on of friends that we've made through social media. And being able to reach out to someone like Flex Wheeler and Jay Cutler, and some of it is due to us being in the industry, but a lot of it has to do with just being able to boom, slide into someone's DM, send them a message. They see, how many followers I have. They see the Power Project. They see your guys' stuff, and they're like, okay, this seems like a halfway legitimate crew. I should go on that show. Should be pretty cool. So there's some of the pros. Where do you guys see some of the pros lying?
I'm just curious, like, when this next generation comes up, but like how many kids will say that their parents met on like a social media or a dating app, I mean.
Yeah, so that happened in New Jersey when I saw my cousin out there, and my cousin was like, he's like, I want you to meet my girlfriend. I've been dating her for 2 years. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I was like, where'd you guys meet? And he said like some app or whatever. He's like, oh, it's really weird. We met on an app. I said, that's not really weird.
That's not.
I said, that's just modern technology, and that's just the way it is. And the way that I met my wife, if we didn't have planes and if we didn't have cars, I would have never met my wife either. I would still be stuck in fucking Poughkeepsie, New York, where I grew up. You know what I mean? So I think that it's really easy for us to get old really fast and be like, that's weird. What the hell are all these kids doing these days?
Yeah.
Wave our fist and wave our newspaper in the air, But I also don't think that is helpful. And I think that somebody could argue, hey, maybe there's aspects of meeting in person that could be better, but I don't. What would you consider to be better? I don't know. People meet each other on an app and they fall in love and they get married and they have babies and they have a great life. I see zero wrong with that. People, maybe, rifling through a lot of people in a short period of time. Maybe not, maybe some of that's not a good practice, and maybe being on those sites and not being able to attract someone else, and maybe those things would hurt. Maybe those things would be tough. I know Nsima's been having a tough time on it, and no, I don't think it's a great thing to really judge those things. I think it just is part of technology.
Yeah. And then, so going into some of the positives too, everybody is on social media now to some extent. So as much as I would love to see like one of our products like on mark of a photo that I took like on a big old billboard on the freeway, like, I mean, yeah, that would do a lot for me, just like to see that, like, oh my God, everyone can see, what we've done. Nobody would even pay attention, but we post something on social media and it goes across, all platforms and stuff. Everyone's there. So like, yeah, that gets seen more. So just getting the word out. So again, it's kind of backpacking on what Mark was saying, but even for this podcast, there was, probably like a year and a half, and we would still get people like, oh, I didn't know you guys were still doing the podcast. It's like, shit, man, of course we are. And so like just getting the word out about just sharing more information is huge, because like it, if you post like a silly meme or something, it could catch fire, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's this Mark Bell's Power Project? And then they look like, oh shit, it's a dope podcast. So it's a bummer that print is like kind of on the back burner now, but traditional media, traditional advertising is like, it's so expensive and it's almost useless now. Again, would I love to see our commercial on TV during the playoffs this year? Yeah, that'd be sick.
Coming soon.
However,
Ooh.
the cost of like, you know, a commercial for the podcast to put it on there on a different thing where people need instant, they need visual, they need this, like it wouldn't make a lot of sense for us to put like, you know, like $300,000 in an ad campaign that's going to go on TV for people that don't probably not going to follow through.
Yeah.
Whereas we spend some time and energy on like a Facebook post where people can click and download something, and that's huge. So as far as like advancing advertising and marketing, I mean, it just we have no idea what's next, but obviously social media, there has been nothing like it, and
Yeah.
it's so gigantic. And the amazing thing also is everyone that is listening, watching right now, like they all can do it too. It's not just I got to know somebody at like NBC that can connect me to somebody else. You know, again, I'm just backpacking again off of Mark, but like, yeah, the degrees of separation are now gone. Like the playing field has been
Look at
leveled.
one of your favorite things, music, hip hop.
Of course, yeah.
You just, hey, record an album.
Yeah.
Where do I record it? At your house. You know, put it on.
Who's going to produce it? I am.
Yeah, put a little bit on IG, put a little bit on YouTube, put a little bit on Twitter, put a little bit on Facebook.
Yeah, that's
Good to go.
Yeah.
Like our buddy Remington James, he was just like, I want to make a rap album, and he just did it, and now he has his second one out.
Seriously.
But so
There's
stuff
no one like
that.
holding you back. You don't have
Correct.
to like get this record label to believe in your shit or whatever. You can just, if you believe in your stuff good enough, and you can buy a little bit of equipment, you can get going.
If you have a talent, you can show the world, and the people are going to be the judges if they dig it or not. And that's it. There's no barriers. That's really dope.
Yeah, and then even if somebody were to like, man, I want to have a podcast with my two friends, it'll be pretty similar to Power Project somehow. Maybe it will be. No, I don't want to do that because that's already going. You know, there's so many people in this world. Like, if somebody were to do that, that would be somebody's favorite podcast.
Yeah.
You know, like there's enough room, there's enough, real estate to go around online because it's endless.
Yeah,
And-
success is not. Success is unlimited.
Correct.
And you know, I talked to a guy the other day. I went on his podcast. He was a teacher, and it's like someone else will listen to that, and they're like, "I'm a teacher," and he has kids and stuff like that, and he's just trying to figure out a way of making life work. He wants to help people be better, and I'm sure there's people that listen to that, and they're like, "Man, I like to lift like this guy. I would like to look like that guy. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that." And you're going to get people to listen to it. And there's people talking about everything from lifting to fashion to music. But it's like, I think one of the coolest things about social media, maybe we forget, is your ability to select whatever the hell it is that you want. You can like look and find any kind of person that you want to follow, and you can kind of get behind that. We don't get that in education, you know, and we need it. That's really missed in education, and education needs to be social media-ud, I guess you would say. And education needs to have some gamification going on in it, because kids don't have any problem being on Instagram all day. Kids don't have any problem, playing Nintendo Switch all day. But they don't want to do school. And it's because school isn't made into a game. School is forced. It's one of the... Anyway, I won't get on that topic. But, you know, I think it's like, can't we just look at social media and how addicting it is to a lot of our youth? And then can't we apply something to where, oh, maybe we can think of some healthier things to feed these kids, to get into their feed? Maybe some people already are trying, but I think it would be a useful thing to start to look into, since that's where a lot of kids already are.
I mean, I'm only 27. We're not that old, but I don't even mean to harp on it, but it does scare me seeing the younger generation integrated into, and we're kind of talking specifically about Instagram, integrated into that, because they're already looking at all these other people, all these other people are doing. And we'll talk more about like maybe some of those negatives later, but that aspect of it does scare me, because it already affects adults so harshly, and it gives people, makes people feel depressed and anxious. Think about like what it's already doing to that young moldable mind. But let me come to some benefits real quick. There's a buddy of mine, Julian. We do jujitsu together at Casio's, and he's a black belt. We roll all the time. He's always teaching me something new. And one thing that like he uses it for, that I've started using it for, is like he'll come across some like really high level jujitsu guy's technique that posts some type of video that like goes into his technique or my technique, and he'll send that to me. Say, hey, look at this guy. Look at what they're doing here, right on Instagram. And it's like you see it, and then you can do it. And I thought about this because when I was really focused on getting my sumo deadlift better, right, and getting my technique better, I'd see videos of Yuri Belkin. And I'd be able to look at his different grips and the back angle that he was doing when he was loading heavier weights and how he loaded himself into the bar. And I was like, whoa, wow, okay, let me apply that. Let me apply that. And then I'd come to the gym. I'd maybe feel something feels off. I see my video. I go look at Yuri's video. I'd be like, right there, that's what I got to fix. So like,
you could even post a video and have Ed Cohn comment on it too.
You could.
Right?
Yeah, you could. And that's happened to me before. I'd post a video and I'd be like, does anybody see anything wrong here? And then a bunch of like high level powerlifters would be like, DM me and be like,
you
maybe
cheated,
you should fix
bro.
this.
You did sumo.
There's a lot of that BS, but I would legit be able to have people critique me, right? That typically, that don't even live near me, right? So I think there is, it all matters. And you were saying this before the podcast, it all matters how you personally use it. I do think that there's a personal responsibility where you need to look at yourself as you're scrolling through and think, is what I'm doing benefiting me in any way? Sometimes like just laughing at some memes is great. Sometimes it feels good. How long are you laughing at those memes? Right? But like maybe if you're going through multiple stories all the time of other people and you find that you're feeling kind of like you're lacking or you're feeling jealous, and maybe you need to analyze that and be like, I shouldn't be doing this. This isn't good for my mind. It's not good for my health. But
how is it also controlling your mind? Because it is so there's like already runaway AI. Runaway AI is these computers have programming, and they have artificial intelligence in them to say, okay, this is what Nsima likes to look at. This is what he does. And let's just say that you have let's just say that you have certain political views, and it recognizes that. Well, now it stuffs everything your way that strengthens your bias, and now it's kind of hard to even develop your own thoughts.
yeah.
And then you find yourself like, I wonder why I'm taking such a hard stance on that. I wonder why I'm not more open. It's like, well, you're not open-minded because all this stuff's being shoved down your throat. Every time you scroll through Instagram, you're seeing your friends and seeing some of those things. But anytime that there's an opportunity for something else to pop up, those things are popping up. And it's kind of molding you and steering you in a certain direction. And as an adult, it might be a little bit easier to see those things. But as a kid, it might be very difficult to understand or know kind of like what you're up against. These algorithms are already turning us into they're already turning us into a simulation. If you were to think about, let's just say you were like going through a maze, right? But as you start to get into that maze, other doors pop open. Well, you're gonna like just go. You're gonna be like, oh, that door's open. I'm gonna go in there. And that's kind of what it's doing. It's like leading you down these different paths. I don't really know what the destructive things are that are behind that. I don't know what it could potentially lead to or what it will be, but it's going to be tough because if we start to lose control over our minds, we're losing control over everything. I made this statement a few days ago on Twitter, and it did really well. It got a lot of retweets and stuff like that. But if there was a drug that caused the same side effects of social media, it would be banned immediately. So I think just having some awareness into that, like, look, this thing is pinging my brain, just like we've recognized, all three of us have recognized that food's a drug. Let's not play around with it too much. Let's enjoy it here and there. Let's have fun with it here and there. But do we need to enjoy it every day of the week, 365 days out of the year? I've said this many times and I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I'm starting to hear some things about it, but I think that we're going to see some like anti-social media things start to really emerge. You know, maybe some companies, maybe like, I don't know, maybe the powers that be will say, hey, you need to talk to people about how they should use this responsibly, just like we have Budweiser, you know, have anti-alcohol commercials, or they talk about not drinking and driving and things like that, and they talk about you know, safety and stuff like that. I kind of believe that social media at some point will come with like a skull and crossbones, because there is a danger to it. I personally like it a lot. I enjoy it. It's fun. It is addicting. You end up on it for way longer than you than you intended, but it does give you a voice. But I think what's happening is I think it inflates our ego. I think it makes us narcissistic. 60% of all posts on social media, 60%, are selfies. What's that gonna do to our kids? You know, who cares about the adult? Like, our shit's already over. Like, even though you're only 27, it's like, you know, you're gonna get married, have kids, or like whatever is gonna, you know, it's just your shit's already halfway mapped out. You know what I mean?
Our shit's over.
Our shit's over. It's our youth that we really need to be really concerned about. And, you know, what I saw in New Jersey from some of my family members, I got in some really good conversation with them about social media. What can we do with our kids? My one cousin has an app on her phone to limit the time that the kids are allowed to use social media, which I think is great, because there should be some sort of time. Like, how many hours do you need it for the day? Do you need it all day, or would it be nice to be able to get on it for 2 or 3 hours? You know, like, I don't know, what's a number? Like, just, you can even ask your child, hey, what do you think a number? They might say 10 hours. Then you got to try to figure out from there, you know, where you go from there. But I don't think it's helpful to shame kids about it. I don't think it's helpful I see a lot of adults doing that. Hey, you're just going to be on your phone all day, and they do that in front of everybody.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like ever doing that to it. I don't think there's ever a good time to do that. I know that some people, that's kind of like some parenting strategy that they use, but I would advise against that strongly. I would advise that you try to have real conversations with your kids and talk to them as if they're adults. You also might want to put an age to it. You might want to say, hey, look, no one in this family gets a phone until you're X age, whatever age that is that maybe it's when they can drive. I don't know. I mean, it's hard. You know, we're in a weird time, because as soon as another kid gets it, then you feel like you might be depriving your kid. Your kid feels deprived of it. But you got to set some boundaries. With my children, the only real rule they have with social media is like, I just don't want them to sleep with their phones in their rooms. And when they don't sleep with their phones in their rooms, they wake up the next morning at like 10. When they sleep with their phones in a room, they wake up the next morning at like 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm not a snooper. I don't, you know, I'm not poking around. I believe in privacy. I knock on their doors. I give them time. I try to be respectful. I don't search through their phone. At the same time, you know, my daughter's only 12. It's like, I don't know what, you know, maybe she's getting into something that she shouldn't be. So it raises a lot of questions. But just from a parenting standpoint, I don't think it's helpful to be the old person yelling about social media, especially when our adults are wearing Apple Watches and they got their phone on the table all the time. What's that message to your kid? It's like you're sending a message to your kid that you can't even be with. Like, even when you're without your phone, you're not without it really, because you got it attached to your wrist.
Yeah. And because you mentioned Gary Vee a couple times, I'll mention him again, but he's like, you know, parents are so against like, social media and the phones, like, it's all terrible. He's like, but yet the second you have a sit down conversation with another adult and your kid wants something, what do? You jam the iPhone right in their face and say, go have fun, or go, you know, whatever, keep yourself busy.
Right.
Like, so you can't really do that and then also say social media is bad, or the iPhones are bad. But I've been having we've been trying to figure it out. Like I do screen time on Jasmine's phone. I felt bad because like everyone else has a phone and it was kind of the same thing. And I guess going back, I probably wouldn't have got her a phone, but she would have felt left out because all her friends have them, all her cousins and stuff. So I just didn't want to, it's sort of like if you never let your kid have like soda and then all of a sudden they get access to a soda and like the floodgates open up. But it was kind of like that. Like I just didn't want her to feel like she was missing out on anything. I almost wanted her to see it and be like, oh, it's not as cool as everyone thought it was.
Yeah.
But Snapchat and, TikTok are kind of awesome. So I've just had to limit the screen time on her phone. Just, certain times it doesn't work at all. And then the rest of the day you have like 2 hours for whatever you want to do. And then we kind of go from there. So it's a learning process for me too,
Yeah. There's the thing is like every few months or whatever, there's always new apps coming up to help you try to take your attention away from social media. Like people are noticing how much of an effect it's having, not just on kids, on adults too. And like Mark mentioned, in a few years, there is going to be there is a little bit of a movement right now in terms of backing away from it and figuring out a way to, I think there's a type of phone called, it's this small screen smartphone. Steph Curry backs it. If you could find it, Andrew, because I can't find the name. Palm. It's called Palm. It's like a small.
So you can like text each other and do a couple things, but doesn't have access to.
Exactly. You can text each other. You can make phone calls. You can do all that. But I don't think it lets you like have like social media apps and stuff like that.
What if you had that for your kid with the other phone? Hey, this is what you're taking to school. I know you're going to be made fun of for it, but like, oh no, John Cena went down. 1, 2. Oh, he got up.
Oh, dude, I thought for sure that was
almost got pinned.
Damn.
Nsima almost became the champ right there, or that 975 pounds. But yeah, maybe maybe there's times where your kid, when your kid goes on a bike ride or something, hey, take this with you, because you want them to just experience the bike ride and have fun. Does it take pictures and stuff too? I'd imagine.
I believe so.
Some stuff.
But I think like I'm not a parent yet, but I think as a parent too, like I'd want to be an example because my kid's gonna look at what the heck is daddy doing or whatever, right? So at the end of the day, like I think what I would try to do is I'd still need my phone or like my big phone for like posting things and stuff like that for work, but maybe most of the time I'm using this phone and I'm not scrolling through and stuff so they can see, oh, okay, I see the difference here, because your kids are going to end up doing what you do, and if they look at you being a walking contradiction, like you're telling me I can't do this, but I see you on your phone all the time, just like you mentioned. That's not a good thing.
Kids are smart too, and depending on their age, they're recognizing what you're doing. They kind of know, like they know coffee's not for them, and why wouldn't you want to give your kid coffee? Well, it's a safety. You're thinking like from a safety standpoint, I don't think it's great for me to give my kid a bunch of caffeine in the morning. Kids don't seem to lack energy, right? And so it's not for them. They also recognize the alcohol that you drink at night is not for them. But their version of that, the only version they have to escape the world, which is, if we go back to last podcast when we talked about pushing that button that electrocutes you, you'd rather be electrocuted than to be lost in your own thoughts. Like, everybody's always looking for an escape. Now, the way that we used to do it, we used to like play games, and a lot of kids still do that when they're really young. If you can encourage your kids to play games, because when they're 3 and 4 and 7 and stuff like that, they'll want to play games a lot. And I don't mean like video games, but they'll want to throw a ball around. If you tell them no, you say, nah, I'm too tired. Say, oh, go play with your sister, go play with your brother. You keep doing that, you're reinforcing the fact that don't play with that ball in the house. You're gonna break something. Take the shit that's gonna break and fucking throw it out, or put it into a room that no one goes into ever, or something like that. I think you have to try to figure out. Look, man, I want to always encourage playing. I want to always encourage the innovation, creation, imagination. I want to always. Because, like, I don't know if you notice this, but like if you play a game with a kid, they change the rules as soon as they start losing. But that's their imagination going.
Little cheaters.
Yeah. Oh, they fucking cheat so bad. It's terrible. You're like, you cheating little fuck. look at you cheating little bastard. What are you doing?
I have to. I'm sorry. nephew, but I gotta call him out. They were playing what's Marco Polo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward rules. Your eyes are closed. Everyone else, Marco
No one's
Polo.
eyes are ever closed.
So
Yeah,
he had goggles on, and
Like
his
this.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
he had goggles on, and his dad was like, "Why do you have goggles on if your eyes are closed?"
Oh.
He's like, "Oh, because you can see underwater," and
What?
he's like, "Do they know that?" Mm-hmm. Hey, do you guys know that underwater you can open your eyes? No. Oh. Like, you just changed the rules again, didn't you?
Yeah.
And just grins a little bit. Like,
Hey.
But all that stuff is them, the kids are learning how to interact,
Mm.
and I think parents need to think about it a little bit more. They need to think about, hey, can I present my kid with like another option? That seems cooler or better than the phone. I realize that playing video games might not be your favorite thing for your kid to engage in, but what if now, like, me and Nsima are playing a video game instead of individually just messing around on our phones, not talking at all? At least we're having fun, popping some
Yeah.
balloons off each other's carts.
Yeah, I know we gotta talk about that too. But Palm looks like it's just a like minimalist phone, so it's like a
Nice.
smaller one, but you can still get apps on it. I was able to find it. It's called the Light phone.
Oh yeah, there's that one too.
This one's dope. It looks like it might be e-ink also,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Better on the eyes.
dude, I hope e-ink just explodes and it becomes affordable, because like,
Doesn't make you blind.
yeah, because it's not an LCD panel or whatever they're called, OLED, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't. It's just you're not looking at
Shit.
artificial light. You're looking just at a book, basically.
What's the name of that phone?
This one's called the Light. I don't know if this is gonna play, but I think it might be ink. But yeah, it looks like it's
It
just
looks like e-ink.
super.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if
It's going to be great. Someone's going to come out with the phone. And it's
No
going to just
way.
look like a really old phone that's like connected into the wall and has wire. You're like, whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is the one that like you basically just connect it to your phone, so like you don't have to get like a new line or anything. It just
Mhm.
you just like call forwarding, because that's all you're getting is forwarding and apparently text. But like, yeah,
Sweet.
anything e-ink, I am like in love with. And I recently, because I've been doing like all the like longer form social media posts and stuff, so I've been
Yeah.
like getting really into like just writing a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll kind of want to sit down on the computer or whatever, and then all of a sudden like everything's available, and I know there's apps that you can shut it all down.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna do that, because I'm just, oh, I can turn it off, cool, I can turn it back on.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up picking up a it's like an old school typewriter almost, but
Oh, wow.
but it's digital.
That's kind of cool.
It's sick. I'm gonna look up the name right now. So it's a word processor. That's what they're called.
Mm-hmm.
They were last made, I think, in 2007. All they were meant for was to give to students to learn how to type and to just write. So you type up a bunch of shit, and then you plug it into a computer, and then you actually watch the words go, because like it has to like type it out loud.
I remember that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
cool. So I picked up one of those because there's no internet connection. It's not an LCD screen. It's just
Mhm.
like a old school calculator looking screen.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked. It came in late yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to crack it open. But I mean, it was like there's e-ink typewriters that are like $500 to $1,000, and it's so expensive. This thing was $35.
Nice.
So being frugal, I got that one instead. As much as I want the other one,
Mm-hmm.
but it's got a thesaurus built in, so it's got everything I need. So my ass is going to be typing up a lot more.
Good deal.
I'm excited.
What
yeah.
about the side of social media that allows you to have some expression, because like everyone kind of becomes a writer in a sense, like, which that has never really happened before. People, unless you were in school or unless you were like a writer, you didn't really write a whole lot, probably, unless you
Mhm.
journal or something. But now via social media, you can like write and you can express yourself and you can share your feelings on different topics. So I think there's a positive to that. Like, that feels good to sometimes get that out. But then I guess also there's the other side of that, where you go to put out a message that you feel is pretty clear and it gets misinterpreted or just gets people pissed off, gets people inflamed.
Mm-hmm. I think on to an extent, that is a good thing, though. To an extent, that is a good thing, because even there's no way that whatever you say isn't going to be interpreted negatively by somebody. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
You can attempt to please everyone, but it's not possible. But then at least, again, their conversation starts. If it's a legitimate gripe, right, where someone's putting forward a different point than you, then that's a good thing, because it furthers conversation. It furthers an idea that you may have, and maybe you end up changing your idea. You know, especially with this, some of the police stuff that's been going on this year. A lot of my ideas have changed through the people that we've talked to, through posts I've seen, through going down rabbit holes of people with different information on Instagram. A lot of my ideas have changed a little bit from where they first were, which is great. But yeah, I think right now, especially though, you're having to be very, very careful with the things you say and what you put out, because getting canceled is a very real thing. Right? People misinterpreting you is a very real thing. And taking out one little thing you say and blowing it out of context, people do that all the time.
Even if it's not correct, you know, like I don't know what's going on, but I saw a post from Brian Callen that like there's some like rape allegations against him.
Him now?
Yeah. So I'm like, well, anyways, it's like that could be totally untrue, but every time people from now on think about him, like they're gonna be like, oh, remember that one time. And so I was just thinking in my head, because like, you know, the Chris D'Elia thing.
And he, by the way, that Chris D'Elia thing, he actually proved himself right. He's not
Really?
some pedo. Yeah, no, he's not a pedo.
See,
I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole.
We don't
quick.
right now,
Yeah,
but
we don't.
But see, that proves my point. Like I was just thinking, like oh yeah, just like him. Like and anyways, I'm thinking like, oh okay, somebody's probably seen Rogan as like the king, and how do you dethrone the king? You get rid of all his henchmen and stuff. So maybe they're starting with all his friends and maybe coming after him. And I was just going down a rabbit hole yesterday.
You know, I think another element to all this is we end up with a lot of like knowledge creation. You know, we end up with which I think is really important, but it unfortunately doesn't come in the format of Instagram, in the format of Twitter, in the form. Sometimes it can, especially Twitter is a little bit more news related. But we usually need a longer format to really express what we're feeling, or really express what we're about to say, or you need like multiple posts, you know, like something like racism, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast, or our thoughts on COVID-19. As we've seen, you know, sometimes I've made a post with something in regards to something that we had on the podcast that might be like a minute clip, 15-second clip, and it goes crazy, you know, with a lot of negativity. But I still back a lot of the things that were said on that podcast from Dr. Patar a while back. I don't agree with everything he said, but I actually am like, I'm watching all this unfold, and I'm like he was pretty accurate, I think, in a lot of ways. Now, other people could have a completely different view on that. They can say, hey, he was full of shit, and he's a conspiracy theorist. He believes in 5G and whatever else they want to say about him. But the podcast is great for that. Podcast is awesome for that. YouTube is a great place for that, because we can have a long conversation. We can really talk about stuff, and we can kind of cover our asses a little bit, because you have to say, hey, you know, before I explain my views on, you know, why I've changed some of my opinion, I need to first tell you that I looked into this guy who had this belief. I looked into this guy who had opposite belief. I kept going back and forth, and then I landed somewhere in the middle, and that's how I have my new theories and ideas on these current situations. But it's tough to express that on a quick social media post.
Let's talk about a quick benefit of something you mentioned there, though, like Dr. Batar, right? Or people, like when things happen, certain people come out with information that is not that publicly known, or is not widespread. It's not popular. It's not on CNN or the news. I think that's a big thing that I've noticed that's been super beneficial. Like, for example, I think there's this thing going on with Trump and the Ghislaine Maxwell situation with the Harvey Weinstein thing. There's a lot of things being kind of banned on Facebook or whatever of being posted that isn't in the news, but there are certain people that are coming out with information, and you're just able to watch it right there. Like, I think there's a lot of things that we've been able to see and hear.
That's something I forgot to mention is there's been countries, I think, that have gotten out of being oppressed because of social media.
Yeah.
They say, hey, like
That's
imagine, World War II, like with Hitler and shit like that. Imagine if people knew the magnitude of what was really going on a lot earlier. I mean, people claim they don't know. Who knows what people knew and what they didn't know. But now it's a lot harder to cover up anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of the information would say, hey, this guy is completely fucking crazy. And people would get behind that sooner, and a war probably would have started a lot sooner. Or maybe even a war wouldn't have been necessary. Maybe they'd been able to stop him before it ever got too out of control.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing. It's because, like, if something's going on, people can actually have a real voice about it. It can be put out, and if a fire is lit, then people just can't.
That's something
can't
I'm
be
forgetting is
suppressed.
a lot of atrocities and George Floyd, a lot of these things, they're able to be seen and shown almost instantly. And then look at all the protests, unfortunately there was some violence in the protests, but I think most people would come to the agreement of like, hey, I think that was actually
A net positive.
I think that was a net positive, and I think moving forward, a couple years from now, it'll be a real positive. It will be like, I think now, it gets positive, but then it goes too far the other way, and then but we'll find a happy medium from that situation.
But yeah, exactly. Like, we're in a place of where we're trying to find that balance. But we're going towards a solution. One thing that me and my buddy Brian talked about was that, for example, the Central Park Karen thing that happened, right? That woman that was calling the police on that black guy. That kind of thing has happened a lot in the past, but people just didn't believe that somebody would ever call the cops on somebody for something wrong to try and weaponize the police. But guess what? Now, because of social media, because you can take a video and share it, people are like, oh my God, people are really doing that. And then like, people are actually...
sounds crazy. You're like, no, that doesn't happen.
But it does. It's a very real thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now there are pages literally dedicated to showing people doing that kind of BS, right? So it's there's a very big positive there, a very big positive there.
I think we've talked a little earlier about notifications, and I think one of a huge. I would just say that I'm just going to say flat out. I think that notifications are just negative. I don't think there's any reason for you to be alerted that somebody liked a post or I just don't, or whatever, they made a comment. I think it's unnecessary, but each person's different, and maybe you like that. But my problem with it is just that now you're on somebody else's timeline, and I would imagine that you have your own day going on, and you can still check these things out. You can still look at these things, but I don't really think it's really that critical for you to get these notifications. And those of you that are going to say, "Oh, it's for work," I think you're lying to yourself. I don't think that's putting any more money into your pocket. And let's just face it, that's what business is about. Like, customers got questions and stuff. Well, yes, but if you run your business properly, somebody should be able to attend to some of those questions. And maybe you're not at that point yet, but I think people will be understanding if it takes you 2-3 hours to get to a question, or 6 hours. Like, it's still not going to take you that long if you just wait until you get back home, or you wait until you have some downtime. But I think it's unrealistic for people to, think that you're going to answer every text message and everything right away. And so I think that people want to, we end up being narcissistic because of social media. We end up checking ourselves out too much. We end up thinking too highly of ourselves. We really think that we're needed. Like, we all think that we're fucking on-call doctors. And you're not needed. You're fine. Like, everything's fine. Like, whatever you're doing or whatever you need to be, whatever somebody needs you for, the thing that you're probably currently doing is probably the most important thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Whether you're shopping for groceries, or you decided that some strength training would be a good idea for you for the day, whatever it is, like, it's like more valuable than you're giving yourself credit for. And I would put value into that rather than putting value into, I got to answer this. I got to, like, really? Why? Like, what's the reason? Is there, I don't think you can come up with a good enough explanation that would pass by my standards anyway.
Like, yeah, I was mentioning to you earlier, like, it was years ago that I turned off all notifications for Instagram. So like the Instagram notifications will come off my phone, but it was a little bit after that that I just like turned off all types of notifications. So when someone texts me, I don't get a notification on my watch or my phone. I'll get notifications for calls because I feel like if somebody's calling me, then it's pretty important these days. But I don't have notifications on because, like, especially when I'm trying to do something, right? It's like you're doing something, then you get a notification, you check. It's nothing. You go back and you got to try and refocus and do whatever it is that you were doing.
I used to know somebody, and they would come in to this building, and they would say, so and so unfollowed me, and I'm like, how do you even have that information? How do you know?
People have apps to show who's unfollowed them.
I'm like, you have an app for that, and now look what happened. Now you're upset. Like, what?
It's stupid. Yeah.
How could you ever be mad that someone unfollowed you? I mean, I would be like, oh, okay, well, I guess, I must have pissed them off or something. Like, that's weird. That's just weird behavior. That goes completely against, being able to choose your own happiness and it's just, you're fucking yourself over. Like, whether we have free will or not is like a massive question for all of humanity that no one's ever quite figured out yet. But you certainly don't have free will or free choice when you start doing shit like that. And when you have those notifications on, I think you're losing some of that too. You're losing a lot of your own freedom. You're chipping away at your own, like, why would you do that? To me, it just doesn't make sense.
So, Nsima, when do you go to like check your phone for texts and stuff? Because I'll lob you a text message. Sometimes it's like right away. Other times, it's like down.
If I'm not doing something, that's when I'll check. Like I'll have notifications for my phone turn back on. If I'm not working or doing something that I need to do, or I'm not reading, or I'm focused on something that I'm trying to do, then I'll put those on because like maybe some people need to text me. But whenever I'm actually doing things, or usually when I'm driving, it's off. Most of the day, my notifications, it's just on do not disturb. I'll still receive calls. I will still receive calls because if people are calling me, it's usually like they need to speak to me. But text,
the phone
I can
doesn't let
always
you
get to
keep
that
them
later.
either. It doesn't let you keep them. Like if you look at it, then you gotta like respond to it, and that sucks. But I think it's on purpose. I think it wants you to keep fucking with it.
Yeah. So I found like that has been super beneficial for me because when I would have it on all the time, it's not like I could not focus and I was all, but it was much harder to bring myself back to what I was doing. And sometimes I just like stop doing what I was doing and get distracted by something else. Like that's what these things are made to do. They're made to take your attention. Social media, it's the currency is attention. The more of your attention that I have, great it is for me as a business person, but sometimes it's not great for you if your attention's spread too thin.
Yeah, and it is really good to have everything, like even the phone, just in another room when you're trying to get work done, because even just having it there, you might like look at it. But if you get that notification and you stop working, it's sort of like your workout. You got to warm up, and then eventually you're in the middle of your set and you're feeling good. Now imagine you stopped that set and you went and cooled off like in the kitchen, and then you like, oh, should I still have more sets to do? You got to do it all over again. It's the exact same thing with work. It takes you it takes everybody different amounts of time, but like let's say it takes you 20 minutes to kind of like zone out and get into that flow state, which who knows if it actually exists. I just know that it takes you a while to get there. And if you look at your phone even for a second, you have to start all over again. So, like really are like bottlenecking, right? I think that's the right term. Like you're slowing yourself down.
Yeah.
Picture like if you can make if you can make everyone individually feel more important, but at the same time dehumanize everybody. Like Andrew, some of the people that you follow, some of the people I follow, some of the people that you follow, we are faceless. We're fans. We are lumped in as just people, but we're just another number. Somebody has 3,000 followers, and now like you're just a follower, right? And so it's a really weird situation. I watched an entire documentary on this. I don't know the name of it, but I'll give it to you after this. Because I'm fascinated by some of the stuff happening with social media. But the guy on the video, he said, these are faceless followers. Basically saying, like, we can't compute what 3,000 people look like. Being, what else? What was the other part? Oops, I lost my spot. But I think there's something to that. You know, you can't compute what 3,000 people are looking like. You can't, when you go to put out a message, you're not thinking of everybody individually. You know, you're just kind of thinking of, these are my fans. You're gonna like put that out there, and you're not thinking that. And that's why when you put up a post, you're thinking, oh, this is gold, and then someone comes over and shits on it. But it's like, because that one person is having a rough day. Like, you know, they're having a tough go of it or whatever, you know, and what you said doesn't fit in with the way that they're thinking for that day.
I don't know why I thought about that so vividly. Like in that specific situation, I just thought of someone coming and taking their pants off and taking shit all over your idea and walking away, because that's literally what people do. Like, yo, this sucks, or F you, or it's just, you know, and yeah, the other funny thing about that is, as a person that does put things out, right? It is interesting to think about, like, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but why does sometimes that one comment, everything could be overwhelmingly positive, but that one or two negative things that somebody says, somebody you don't know says about what you've done, can affect you so deeply sometimes, you know, especially if you're new to it. After you've done it for a while, okay, you start to get desensitized to it, but when you start putting things out and it's not received by one or two people, like, oh, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Well, imagine being a kid and you've never had a real life experience with like real intimacy. So you don't know, like, there's another level to this social media. Like, social media is like, we're all just in like this giant simulation. You know, it's a simulation of, it's a simulation, and it's hard to recognize how fake it is because you see real people in it. Like, you see your family members in there, right? But it's still kind of like, it's an artificial world that we don't really need it. You know, we went on for many years, millions of years really without it, you know, and now it's here, and it's a hard thing to try to interpret all the time. So it just puts us in some weird, you know, compromising positions that I don't think we've ever been into before. But if you're a kid and you've never been in love before, you know, your dynamic with your parents or your brother or something is like not the same, right? That's the highest level of intimacy that you probably know at that point, you know, some little back and forth you have with someone else. So that fucking crushes you.
That's tough.
Somebody says that you know, your outfit looks weird, or I mean, it just could kill you. You know, it could be really devastating. And that's why our suicide rates amongst children are, you know, skyrocketing. I think they're up like 30-something% or something like that. I mean, that's just awful. And I think that we need to just recognize that social media isn't the cause of it. It's how we utilize social media. So we don't have to say, hey, everybody needs to delete social media. No one can have a smartphone. Those are all things that might help, or might help to limit time, detox from it here and there. Those are all things that are reasonable, but we have to help people with their interpretation of it. Hey, look, this is just some back and forth on the internet. That person doesn't like you. That's okay. That's life. You know, in a normal world, especially without cars and a bunch of other stuff, like in a world thousands of years ago, how many people would you interact with during your lifetime? 1,000, maybe.
Yeah.
Like 1,000, it might be a lot, right? Now you're interacting with 20 million or 50 million or however many fucking people are on the internet.
Yeah.
Man, that's huge. I hadn't even thought about that, how, you know, like kids haven't experienced something else other than that, you know, that interaction. That is,
well, like, just
really
your daughter, for example, she would experience you and your wife and other people that are in her life that are directly around the household, the people that come in and out of her life, you know, on a day-to-day basis. Some of the people she goes to school with, some are her friends, some are her buddies, and that would be it. And same with my kids. But now it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. Anybody can look at their stuff, and, you know, that would be another thing I would advise. If you have a kid, let's say really encourage them to be private on there. Encourage them to don't just like suck up a bunch of followers. Like just make sure they're people that you know, or at least start out that way,
Mhm.
But now they're in like a rat race, on social media where it's like, one kid's more popular in school. Oh, so and so's got 6,000 followers, that kind of stuff.
This is okay. This maybe it's beside the point, but it has made me curious. There are people sometimes when their kids are born, especially when they're famous, they make their kids an Instagram, and their kids, without even knowing it, are garnering thousands,
Yeah, I think
tens of
Barquan's son has like
Tyka's a popular little baby.
300,000.
Yeah,
Right.
but that makes me curious. Like when some of these kids get older, you can definitely see how this could be super beneficial because this kid already has a following, right? When they're a teenager or whatever, they start to develop something and they start to use something. They're already a personality to potentially hundreds of thousands
Yeah,
of
he's
people.
an artist. He's got some cool paintings. He's got 300,000 followers, and boom.
Yeah, but then also like, what if, what if this ends up being a Truman Show type of deal to this kid, where they're like, they've seen everything, they know everything, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes you wonder a little bit. Like I just wonder what is the other side of it, because there's definitely a big positive, but I feel like there's a big negative there. Like if this person just ends up wanting to be a private individual, but they can't be.
Yeah. I think it would just depend on, parenting. I think, if you if you get everything that you needed from your parents, then you should be somewhat okay, but there's no guarantees on that either, because we've seen a lot of people come from great families and they're fucked up really really bad as well. And I think it's our interpretation of what social media is and what it does. And I would imagine that Bart and Gio, in their particular case, they're probably communicating quite a bit with him, and he's probably like, even though he's super young, he's probably getting a firsthand look on how it can be utilized on the positive side.
Yeah.
Like, look what mommy and daddy have been able to build. We've built these multiple businesses, and we're they're kind of icons in health and fitness, and they're just iconic people. They're just both awesome people. I think we all enjoy them. And I think maybe he's going to see a lot of that. But you're right. It's like, yeah, what happens when he's 11 and he's like, wait, people found out that I peed my pants on every birthday that I had until I was 9, or whatever weird.
And Bart and Gio, I wasn't specifically talking about you guys. I was just like, I see this a lot in general.
It's the only famous baby that I know.
But yeah, no, there are a lot of famous babies out there. Like there's this kid, but
people should be cautious on what they post with their children. I think they should give it some, give it some thought.
Yeah.
I saw recently the other day, the Bella twins both had babies, former professional wrestlers. One of them was with Cena for a long time, but they both had children, and they just posted a picture of like the kid's hand, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, because now it's like, we don't need to know everything about the baby, but you just see a hand and it said the weight and it said a couple things about it. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat, so there are different, if people are looking for other options on how to share without, overly sharing, then, that might be a good option. I try not to post too much stuff with my kids. But, they're my kids. So I'm super, like, I'm most pumped about them out of everything that's in my life. So, if it was up to me, I would just snap pictures of them all day long, talk about them all day long.
Yeah, that's going to be I mean, I already have been thinking about it, like, like, oh, maybe once we get a name, like, I'll start Instagram and just start, like, uploading stuff, keep it private, just so that way we have, like, some record of it. But, you start making all these excuses, like, oh, because I'm going to, like, ever run out of space, like, I can't just save the shit on, like, the cloud or wherever it is, And then the other hard part about it is, like, yeah, I'm going to want to post a shit ton of pictures with me and my son. Like, that's going to be hard not to do that. So...
Is the real name AZ 2020? I think that's dope, dude.
You weren't supposed to tell anybody.
Oh, okay, shit. I don't think you can use combination of letters and numbers. I think someone recently tried that. It didn't work.
Elon Musk. He named his son like a model number.
Yeah, right?
Which is dope. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, actually, were you about to say something about your kid?
Yeah, it was just something silly, but
go ahead.
that I was going to name him Sega Genesis just to
Sega would
Mhm.
be a good name.
It
Though.
would be a
Sega.
sick name.
What's Genesis mean? That's a cool word.
It is a cool word. I don't know.
I know what it means. I know it's like the beginning. It's the start.
Mm.
People use it as that, like the genesis of this.
And then where did Sega come from? Was that just someone's name?
Maybe it's an abbreviation.
How about Nintendo? What's that mean?
I don't think Nintendo has a
Mr.
name.
Nintendo?
I believe it was Mr. Nintendo. I'm gonna
Joey
look up.
Nintendo.
You know, one thing I was thinking about though, like when I was a kid, you know, if there was ever like I would have time limits on watching TV, right? But and my mom would like just let me just sit there and watch TV for hours and hours on end. But sometimes on Saturday morning I'd be able to watch, you know, a few hours of TV, right? But TV, when you're watching a show, it's still like one show with some intermittent commercial breaks. You're just watching it. You mentioned something earlier where you said like your niece was scrolling through super fast, right? And the way kids distract themselves now, if they have socials, they just scroll through these different things, but their attention is going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Then within a 30-minute span, these kids might have seen more than 100 different posts, like 100 different things, 100 different ideas, 100 different people doing different things. It's just like,
And how much of that might be like borderline, you know, inappropriate for like the age demographic, you know? It's like, I don't know. Do you want your daughter who's 11 to see girls like not really wearing a lot of clothes?
Right.
You know, like you're like, because like what is that world about? You know, now we're getting love because we're getting more likes. And I think that's where we start to get a lot of problems. And I think that those are things that I think that you can at least communicate to your kid. The way that they end up interpreting that and stuff can be different, but at least they can't say no one ever told me. You can say, hey, you know, let's have a conversation about this. I want you, you know, you're going to have these platforms and that's great, but you're going to hear what I have to say about them. Like I want to talk to you about it because I want you to understand that this is very serious. You know, people are going to like, people are going to comment, and here's the way I'd like you to handle that. I want you to know you have all the love that you need in this household. You know, they're not going to care. They're not going to give a fuck about what you say, but you should still tell them, you know, and say, you know, if you get 15 likes, you know, I don't want you to come crying to me about it. I want you just to understand that that's just, you know, the way, however you need to express it, you know. You don't want to say, don't come crying to me, because you want them to come to you for everything.
So, real quick, so Sega was an abbreviation for service games because it was first used in 1954. Oh, wait, no, I crossed up line, sorry. Earliest products were aimed at American servicemen on military bases. So that's where service games got shortened to Sega.
Sonic? Maybe your kid's name could be Sonic?
That'd be kind of cool, too.
When he's coming out of the womb, have the music playing in the background.
Oh, that would be
Sonic
dope.
Run.
Da, da, da.
Oh, I know we're talking more about talking about the negative stuff too right now, but like the positive side though, what if, you know, your kid sees someone their age playing the guitar or something, you know, like watching the journey, not like somebody just like jamming out like crazy, like, oh shit, I'll never be that, but watching them be like, oh, they suck too.
Yeah.
Like, all right, okay, I'm not the only one. And then all of a sudden they get better. Like, hey, I got just as good as you. Like, and, you know, kind of like that.
Yeah, a lot of encouragement.
Yeah, and it can easily go negative, right? Because, oh, I'm not as good as that person. I'm going to quit. But, you know, kind of like, you know, the 4-minute mile. Like, if that shit's possible, all right, cool, I can do it too. Yeah, so something like that. But, again, it is tough. And I think that's where the conversation, you know, comes from the parents about saying, like, okay, that like they're just practicing harder or whatever it may be,
Molding the mindset.
yeah, just kind of making it making their little minds like more accepting of like the positive side instead of, you know, just letting them have, you know, free will over whatever they want to see.
I think you're what you're going on there is really, really, really important because, you know, a lot of people grow up and maybe their parents don't pour into them that type of growth mindset type of idea. So like when you see somebody else doing something, like you don't have to perceive that, you have to be jealous of that. You can perceive that as, wow, that's really cool, I can do that too. Or, oh, wow, that's really dope, I can learn to do that. But especially like now, if someone doesn't have that type of mindset and they're on social media seeing all of these awesome, amazing things, their mindset's not a growth mindset. They're not thinking of all the ways that they can maybe try to achieve
Mhm.
something close to that. More so, they're thinking about like, damn, they're doing that. I'm doing this. I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. Blah blah blah. Well, if you're a parent that puts that growth mindset into your child, and you help them build that, then as they go in and see all of this on social media, which they will as time goes by, they're not looking at that person being jealous. They're not looking at that person thinking about how stupid they are and how smart that person is. Instead, they're thinking about how they can grow. I mean, then when I look at social media and I look at strong people and I look at successful people, I immediately wonder, whoa, okay, let me dig in to see how they did that. Maybe they got a YouTube channel. Maybe they got this or that, where I can learn about their mindset and their tactics. It's your perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, kind of going back a little bit too about like the negative comments and stuff, and like why we focus on just that one. That's because we're designed that way.
Mm.
We're designed to look for danger. We're designed to look for something that can harm our pack. You know, so it's like, oh shit, that's a snake. I need to make sure I don't lose track of that snake. So when they see a negative comment, that's why it's like almost like highlighted.
Yeah.
It's tough.
This
We're
is something to
designed that
keep in
way.
mind, and that kind of falls in line with a lot of this. Validation by proxy, meaning like you learn validation through the process of what somebody else is doing or what you're seeing somebody else do. Validation by proxy, it's called, is a core structural element of a disorder, which is called narcissism. So you might need to be careful of, you know, being around your kids and like just they're going to see everything that you do. You know, so if you're taking selfies, you know, they're going to be encouraged to do that and think that that means something. Post that, that's going to be cool. Why is it going to be cool? Well, because it's going to get a lot of likes. Now you've kind of painted yourself into a corner of, well, why is it okay for you to do it and not me? You know, I'd be very cautious of what you do, not just in front of your kids. I think, you know, hopefully what you get from this podcast is that you need to like parent yourself. You know, you need to be a little bit annoying to yourself and say, do I really need the phone while I'm watching TV, while I'm eating? Like, there's a lot of shit going on over here at one time. Like, all right, I'm going to actually eat my meal like a normal person. I'm going to go sit down at a table and relax, enjoy the meal. When the meal's over with, maybe I'll check my phone a little bit. And when that's done, maybe I'll, you know, I would really strongly advise to, you know, in my house, I'm not really strict. I don't go, you know, yelling and like, but it's gotten to be pretty simple at this point. You know, somebody sits down, and it doesn't matter even if you're a guest in our house. If you sit down in front of the TV with your phone, I just look over at you, and you're like, "Oh shit," and you go put it away. You know, or you can just go and use your phone. Like either way is fine.
Yeah.
You know, do one or the other, but don't sit down and try to like watch a show or watch a movie with us while you're on your phone the whole time. That's interrupting everybody else's. Usually when you're trying to watch something together, like you're trying to experience it together. It's like, hey, let's experience this together. Let's enjoy this together. So, you know, have your chargers and stuff in places where, you know, that aren't near the TV, and just do the best you can with that kind of stuff. I don't think there's a need to be on social media for that moment. If there's going to be situations where you're going to still do it, that's okay. I think what Nsima said about meditation in the last podcast, you know, just don't judge yourself for it, I think is great. There's no reason to be like, oh, you're a slouch. You can't keep up. Like, why do you keep doing these things? Like, you said you're not going to do it. Why do you keep doing it? There's obviously a reason that you want to do it, but can you start to correct it at a certain time? I think that you can, you know, and just really be conscious of just what the hell it is you're doing, you know, because we can waste a lot of time on social media. I do know there's a lot of people that have told me, hey, you know, that post that you made like changed my life. You know, they'll say some crazy stuff where you're like, whoa, that's pretty impactful. But what I would say is, you know, people talk about like legacy and like, hey, what would you like people to remember? I hope that people, when it comes to anything that I put out, I hope that people recognize they don't need me. That's my goal. Is like, you know what? Hey, that dude taught me like some really cool, valuable stuff. I don't need to watch one more thing of his ever again because I got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fucking good to go. Like that's what I hope. That's the way my dad taught me. I think I shared it with you guys in the past that when my dad was like on his deathbed, I wrote him a letter and said, "You can go because you taught me everything that or at least what I thought, everything I need to know to kind of make it through the ups and downs of this life." And so hopefully we understand that we don't need social media. It could just be some icing on the cake. And I think you need to kind of treat it like your bitch. You need to, make it fun, make it silly, make it just, I've said this before as well. Like when you look at it, think about it as training. You're training your mind to have some good, strong balance. And when you see something and you're like getting a little, you get a little bit of that, pull back a little bit and say, no, remember, we're training. How does that affect me negatively? It doesn't, because I don't fucking care. Okay, next, and you get through the next one and just do the best you can with it and view it more as training your mind than anything else.
Cool.
I like that.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. If you caught both of them on the live stream, you guys get an extra star on your name tag.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll ship it out to you eventually.
You get a scratch and sniff
those were great.
sticker of all three of us.
Maybe not. Well, some people are into that, so let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to charge for those. But anyways, thank you, Piedmontese, for sponsoring this episode. For more information on them, please check the podcast show notes, YouTube, and Facebook descriptions. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course YouTube. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. And real quick, I keep forgetting. Please make sure you guys are checking out Saturday School. They're freaking amazing. Mark's dropping all kinds of knowledge, and the people that have found him, they're in love with them. So the more people we can get engaged in those conversations, the better. That's on this feed. It's on this same podcast feed. It's on the same YouTube channel. So make sure you guys go check that out. And then I already gave my Instagram. So Nsima, where are you at?
Onlysmells.com. That'd be a perfect domain for our idea. Anyway.
Only smellies.
Scratch and sniff of Nsima in his gi.
Ooh.
And we'll call them smellies.
That's
Smellies.
bad. There was one day I came here after jiu-jitsu and I put my gi in like the room, right?
To air it out.
I just kept it in the room, right? And I came out from the gym and I think someone was like, "What the fuck is that smell?" And it was like permeating everywhere. It was horrible.
Made me hungry. It smelled like Fritos and Doritos combination.
I think I remember
I'm kidding. I
wondering
didn't smell anything.
what smelled like chips.
Yeah, it was bad. But
It smelled like chips.
yeah, guys, by the way, there is another Smooth Panther video out, so check it out if you want to stretch. What a little stretch. But at Nsima Inyang on Instagram, YouTube, at Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter.
How can I be stretched to sleep? I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you all later.